Hello, can you all hear me? I mean, pretty sure you can. Awesome. How's everybody doing today? Awesome. Well, hello, and welcome to my anime extravaganza stream. Tonight, I thought it'd be a lot of fun to just sit around and talk about something other than just games. I mean, maybe we can talk about games. There's no reason we can't, but anime. Anime is awesome. We all like anime, I think, and after having a bit of a discussion with some of the other folks in some of the chats, we decided, hey, let's have a day where we can just talk about it. So here we are. Those of you who are new, I'm Bot Whisperer. I'm fairly new to the streaming thing, but hopefully we can, you'll see me more and more. SpongeBob is your favorite anime? Nice. I only ever saw a bit of the movie, the original movie when it came out, years ago. It was pretty good. Simpsons was pretty good as well. Simpsons doesn't count though, right? It's got to be Japanese. So, Simpsons, sadly, it's those Westerners. Seven Deadly Sins. Yeah, Seven Deadly Sins is definitely a big one. Well, we can still talk about Simpsons. I mean, come on. Great animation is great animation. Nothing is taboo here. Demon Slayer. Yes, Demon Slayer is another really popular one. I haven't seen that one yet, but that's been a really big one that I've noticed a lot of people going on about. So, yeah. Initial D. I think I've heard of that one. I think I've even seen, not seen the show, but I've, seen it around on the shelves. But, yeah. What's Initial D about? Drop some info in the chat, and we'll discuss it. Everything's pretty much open. It's a pretty relaxed kind of an evening. Yeah, I do have stuff to talk about and things I'm going to show you. It's about cars. Oh. So kind of like not Disney cars, though, right? Well, so yeah, first and foremost, anime. I think some of us have been anime fans longer than others, probably quite reasonably. Some of us have been fans all our lives. Some of us haven't. I certainly wasn't a fan forever. It was only when I was probably in my probably my early 20s, actually, when my sister, she was always really into anime, and a lot of it comes from her. And I ended up seeing a lot of different shows that she was watching. It was kind of like, oh, okay, interesting. And for example, here's one that I'm pretty sure everybody remembers, right? Yeah, of course you do. So that was an anime I think that started a lot of people out. And it didn't necessarily start me out, but it just had me kind of, curious about things. It was kind of like, okay, whatever. I can see the allure of some of these shows, and Pokemon was definitely a good one. But it wasn't until a few years later, I was probably 24, and I remember just my sister again was watching more and more, and I just remember asking her, I was like, are there any mature anime out there? Obviously there's Pokemon, and there was other ones at the time that were really big, like Digimon and Beyblades and Yu-Gi-Oh, of course. Yu-Gi-Oh is probably familiar with a lot of you. What else was there at the time? There was a lot. And I never got into any of those, with the exception of maybe the first season or so of Pokemon. I was kind of like, that's actually, yeah, Sailor Moon, actually, yeah, that's a big one. Now that you mention it, I had friends who watched Sailor Moon, actually. And yeah, Sailor Moon, that's another good example. So, but I wasn't into Sailor Moon either. And so it wasn't until I was like about 24 and I'd asked her, I was like, are there any like more mature, like not just comedy type thing? And she's like, oh God, yeah. So I Googled some stuff and looked into things to try and see, what kind of shows were out there. And the thing about anime back then was that it wasn't as, I don't want to say mainstream as it is now, but you couldn't just go into a store and find it in the DVD section like you can nowadays. You can go into any practically any video store and you can find anime there. And it wasn't like that before. You had to either find a specialty shop that sold it or you had to import it from Japan. And I was not going to do anything like that. But I definitely looked around and tried to find the things I could. And the fortunate sort of circumstance of it was at the time was that my family, we owned and operated a video store of our own. And so it wasn't like a big franchise, it was just our own family owned business. And so through there, I started talking to a lot of the distributors who sent us the movies, and I was like, hey, can you get such and such a title, And they were like, well, let me look into it. And they would look into things like, oh, yeah, we got these in here. And that was kind of my gateway into finding anime to watch for myself without having to, scour the world in a manner of speaking, trying to find these obscure titles, right? So I did some inquiries and I asked and found a few titles that sounded appealing to me. The first one was probably not this one, but this one here. And we have Chrono Crusade, which was a really good. There we go. Now we got it centered. So yeah, Chrono Crusade, really good series. And as you can see, there was a whole bunch of them. This is back when you had to buy each DVD individually, and then you got the collector's box with the first DVD, and then everything else you had to buy, and then you filled up your box as you went along. And that was the first anime that I bought for myself, and was kind of like, okay, this I'm gonna take a chance, and I'm gonna watch this series and try and, see what all the hubbub is about with this anime stuff. I mean, the series could end up sucking, and then it's like whatever. But yeah, so I bought that, and like I said, that big box came with just the first DVD, and it didn't have any of the others. So it just had a big cardboard insert. And I took it home and I watched it, and I was actually blown away. It was a really, really good series. And I was like, my God, now I have to find and track down the rest of these DVDs. And so I called the distributor back and was like, hey, do you have these other ones? Oh, no, we can't get these ones. And I was like, oh my God, really? So I got her to send me, I think she sent me like 2, 4, 6, and like 5 or something out of the other out of the rest of the sets. Was kind of like, okay, there's some gaps in there. And whenever I went to the big city, I was always like, because I lived in a small town up north, and whenever I went down south to the big city, it was always like, well, I got to look around. And so I would search around and I'd go into the different places. And finally, I was able to track down the other remaining discs, because I didn't watch the series. Like, I didn't skip ahead and watch the discs just because I had them. I said, no way, this story is amazing. I want to watch the story in order or not at all. So I stuck by my guns, and I went and I tracked down the remaining discs, and then I sat down and I marathoned the whole series, and it was incredibly good. And still to this day is probably one of the best anime series I've ever seen. I was really lucky in that sense, because I think finding a really great series with great animation and great story, great characters, all of that, really helped to sort of show that, the stereotypical view that most people have when they hear anime is probably they think of things like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all these other, goofy kids cartoons. But not a lot of people would know that there are very mature themed stories out there to be told and enjoyed. And that's what Chrono Crusade was. To give you, obviously, some insight into that. Chrono Crusade is about a group of a twin brother and sister, or maybe they weren't twins, but brother and sister regardless. And they live in an orphanage. The younger brother is very sick, and he's always ill, and possibly dying. Well, the big sister, who at the time, I mean, she's only like maybe 11 or 12. She wasn't very old. He was younger than she was, actually. Yeah, now that I think about it, so they couldn't have been twins. But he was probably 2, 3 years younger than her even. And she just determined that she was going to spend her life taking care of him. And long story short, a devil attacks the orphanage and takes her brother for reasons which I won't get into because it's heavy plot related why. It revolves around why he's sick, because basically he's a healer, a supernatural healer, and the demon, wants to corrupt that. So the little brother gets taken away, and she devotes her life to trying to track him down, and in doing so she crosses paths with Chrono. This series is called Chrono Crusade, and she meets this devil named Chrono, not related to the one that took her brother, and says to him, hey, like, my brother's been taken, you have to help me. And he says, well, the only way we can do that is if you make a contract with me to help you do it. So she says, okay, I'll do whatever it takes. So she basically signs her life force over to him in exchange for finding and rescuing her brother. So that is what the series is about. And when the series begins, she's grown up because years have passed that she's been searching for him. And she's she's an exorcist who works with the church to kill, supernatural beings. And in the meantime, when she's not working, try to find her brother. And so the series is, it gets pretty, it's got a lot to offer. It starts out very upbeat, but very serious. Like, you can tell there's humor. There's definitely humor in the series. It's not all blood and guts or anything like that. There is some crazy violence in it, but nothing on the level of like Blood Sea, the vampire one where people are being literally ripped to pieces. Yeah, it's nothing like that, but there is some pretty deep and dark themes that go into the series. And it's a very, very good series. The characters are all very likable. You'll remember them, the ones that you're supposed to remember, because there's a lot of supporting, other exorcists she works with, etc., etc. But all the main characters, you'll remember them because they were just amazing in their own rights. And you get to see a very great story that evolves between Rosette and Chrono as they spend the series together, trying to locate her brother, and this and that. So you really can't go wrong with it. And like I said, I'm very thrilled and impressed that was kind of my first segue into anime, was to find something that was that great. I really didn't expect it to be that great. And I don't see it around very often, which kind of really surprises me, because I feel like it's the sort of it's an anime that I think it should always be on everybody's to watch list. It's that good. And I've seen it in like YouTube channels where people discuss it, and they'll usually use it in lists of like some of the most like the biggest moments. For example, one had it as I think it was the second saddest ending in an anime that they had ever seen. It does have a very sad ending. Not like horribly sad. I don't want to spoil anything, but you really do have to watch it. But I think everybody cries at the ending of Chrono Crusade. It's really, really sad ending, but great series. Top 10 anime betrayals. Well, there's definitely there's definitely a betrayal or two in Chrono Crusade. Yeah. Yes. Top 10 anime betrayals. Do we have any anime? I've got a few anime that have betrayals. Does it have anything to do with time? Chrono Crusade? If you're referring to Chrono Crusade because Chronos is Greek for time. Yes. The yes and no. It's not like there's time travel or anything like that in there. Now that you mention it, and then there's probably a picture. Well, there's Rosette and Chrono. Let me try and get it in a spot you can see. And you see around her neck, she's actually got, right there, she has a little timepiece. And the timepiece that she has around her neck represents the contract between her and Chrono. Because remember, her life force is indebted to Chrono in exchange for finding her brother. Which means that if they find her brother and rescue him, Chrono will suck the life out of her. And that's just the contract. So yes, Chronos is Greek for time. Yes, there is a time limit that would be set on her life in that sense. And also you have to factor in that because Chrono draws his power from her body, anytime he goes into a serious battle and things, he can heal his wounds, but it comes at a cost of her life. So there is definitely a time factor that is overshadowing everything that's happening in the series. So yeah, that's actually good notice on the Chrono, the Chronos, the time thing, yeah. So again, not going to spoil anything too much, but yeah, that definitely does signify there's a lot of a short amount of time to be had. But yeah, great series. Definitely highly recommended if you can track it down somewhere. I'm not sure if it's streaming on like Crunchyroll or Funimation or anything, but definitely track it down. You make that sound very interesting. Well, I can only make it, in all honesty, I can only make it sound as interesting as the series itself is. And the series is very well done. It is really great. The story is beautiful. So I can't sell it enough in that sense. If the series was terrible, I really wouldn't have anything to talk about, really. So I guess you can read into it that way. But yeah, if you do get the chance, I highly recommend everybody take a look at it, watch it, because it is a great series. But yeah, so that kind of cut my teeth on anime, and I thought, well, there's got to be some other stuff too, right? So I just started Googling things and was like, hey, what about this or this? And, I ended up finding one of my next ones, which was actually this one here, which is called Chobits. And Chobits is actually a really interesting one. It has a lot of interesting themes in it as well. Overall, it's a love story. And it's odd in the sense that it's between... Yeah, love that one. Yeah. She loves that one because I showed that one to her as well. And it's a really, really good one. Yeah, so Chobits is a really great series as well. Love story, so you got that. You've also got the what is it? It's got the science fiction aspect because the girl in question on the front, she is a Persicom, which is like a humanoid android robot, and the series gets into the debate as to whether or not the machine can feel and whether it's human, how human could an android be, which ironically is kind of what you'll hear in topics of debate nowadays with them, with the advancements they're making in androids and AI. You'll hear them talking about, how human should we make androids? And this series kind of looks into that and says, hey, what's love? Like, what could constitute real love? Can real love exist if the girl is just a machine? Because like the personality is technically just a program, but does that count? And it's a really, really, really good series as well. And another kind of another really great ending to it. Definitely a great ending. So if you haven't heard of Chobits, again, that one's actually getting pretty old now. I think that one was fairly old even when I found it. It was fairly old. I could be wrong, but see if there's a date on it. Oh yeah, okay. So this DVD is 2005. So that DVD set is 2005, and I mean we're at what 2023. So there, that gives you an idea as to how old the series is. And by the time I got that complete box set, the complete box sets for anime never come out when the anime is like brand new. So for me to have got the entire series in one box, it's probably even a couple years old by that point. So we're looking at well over, almost a quarter of a century old for that series. But a great series, and definitely one that you want to check out. Great animation, great characters. You won't forget their names. They're all fun. And yeah, another really great series. Can't go wrong with that one. Highly recommend that one. And after that one, my collection really started expanding after that and growing. There was, I mean, at now it sits at over 250 separate series, not just like physical DVDs, but like entirely separate series. So I've expanded. I've got all kinds of genres. I started looking into basically anything I could that sounded interesting. And as I said before, yeah, that is a lot. It just grew over the years. It started out, like I said, I just bought the one thing and another and another. And next thing I knew, I was taking home handfuls of them as often as I could, buying up as many as I could find. And I tried to find as many different genres as I could, because I was curious to see like how well they could be done. Because like we saw, like I said, there was Pokemon, and it's like, okay, those are the kid ones. But then I was like, I want something more mature, and I got Chrono Crusade, and I got Hellsing, and I got Chobits there, because I was like, well, let's find something that's like a romance, and it's like Chobits is a romance. So I was like, okay. So I literally bought it off Amazon. That's my first ever purchase from Amazon, was a anime, and that was the Chobits box set there. And the majority of my anime I went completely blind into buying, because, as I said, there wasn't anything like it is now. It was just, hey, go find this anime, and it's like roll the dice. It's like pay your $60 to get the box set, and like maybe it'll be a great series or maybe it'll be garbage. So I tried to, fine tune things and made sure that if I ordered something, I was pretty sure I would really like it. But I quickly found that it didn't really matter what genre I chose. Everything was done very, very, very well. Comedies were really funny, and the dramas were, the love stories were deep, and the characters were all great. I also really enjoyed how almost every anime, an episode always ends on a cliffhanger. There's never, depending on the type of show, like Chrono Crusade is a great example, even Chobits, like they will end with something where you're like, damn, you really want to see that next episode just so you can find out, what the continuing story is for your characters, right? So that was something I always really was impressed by, for that anime could do that on like every show that I watched. So yeah. So there was a lot of genres that I explored. I pretty much explored everything, and I've got probably any genre here. I mean, you could probably drop a genre on me, and I could probably find an anime in my collection that fits it. I have horror, I have comedy, I have drama, I have I have science fiction. I have fantasy. I've got musicals. I have two musicals for sure that I can think of off the top of my head. One was the Narima Daikin Brothers, which is kind of a spoof of the Blues Brothers, which was an alright one, not that great. And then there was Dance with Devils, which was much better in my opinion. Uh, my wife likes that one too. But yeah, Dance with Devils was a really good one. So there's a lot out there to sort of consume. There's something for everybody, and that's kind of the interesting thing about anime. There's been multiple people, friends, family members, etc., that I've shown uh, different anime too, just because it's like, your friends pretty good and your family members pretty good. And so I just remember taking out one series, and I showed it to my dad actually, and he started watching the series because he was like, wow, this is actually a really good show, that being Black Butler. And he really liked Black Butler, so he was watching the first series of that. It was, I think, the only one that was out at the time anyway. So yeah, he watched that because he thought it was a great show. My dad's a weeb, yeah, pretty much. But great series, or they'll get a person's attention. And it's the same with a show like Death Note, for example. I watched through Death Note, and the vast majority, I don't think there's ever been a single person that I haven't shown Death Note to, and they didn't like Death Note themselves. Yeah, Death Note was cool. And I have a friend who does not like anime at all, and he owns Death Note because he came over and I was watching Death Note, and he was like, what the hell? And he watched it, and we had to go back, start it over, and then he went through the whole series, and by the time it was over, he's like, okay. And he went out and he bought the complete series. So, and it's the only anime he owns, and he doesn't watch any other animes. You watched one episode when you were 7 or 8? Yeah, it was the first anime you watched. Yeah, it was a great, great series. You always remember the first series you watched, right? That was and Death Note's a hell of a great series to start out on. A really good one. My sister actually, she looking back on it, it's kind of funny because I remember being like 8, 9 years old, and we'd go to the video store on the weekends to like spend our allowance or whatever and rent stuff. And I'd always rent, like, I'd get like, oh, hey, look, here's Donald Duck or the Ninja Turtles or something, right? And my sister would always bring home these like weird cartoons that I'd like nobody'd ever heard of. And looking back now, it's like they were all anime, all of them. And I just remember like the some of the craziest shows. There was one that I recently found it. It's on YouTube, and you can watch it there. It's the only place I've ever found it. It's called Ringing Bell, and it's a story about a little sheep whose mother is killed by the wolf, and he runs away to join the wolf because he says he doesn't want to be a weak sheep. He wants to be a wolf, and he runs away with the wolf to become a wolf. And it's a really crazy story. It's only probably like half an hour, 40 minutes long. It's really not that big of a series or anything. It was just a movie. But those were the kinds of movies she was bringing home and watching when we were kids. And I just remember thinking, I was like, wow, like she's got some like weird shit, man. And now it's like I look back and there's a lot of them. I'm like, I wish I could find some of those shows just to see what the hell they were about now, because they didn't make much sense when we were like kids, but nowadays it'd be a lot different. So it's about a wraith main. Yeah. But yeah. So things like that. So anime's kind of always been around, I guess. Ringing Bell. Yeah, if you know what I mean. Yes, I get what you're saying. Because the wraith. Yeah, so yeah, the anime's kind of always been around, and my sister, I think, I think she was destined to be an anime fan because she was just she's younger than I am, and like I said, when I was 8 or 9, so that means she was like probably 6 years old at the time, and she was finding these animes and bringing them home to watch for the weekends, and there were some weird ass shows that she would bring home. So yeah, there's definitely been. I think we were destined to be anime fans in the long run because anime was just sort of creeping up in there from a very young age before anybody even knew what anime was. So yeah, to see where how far it's come now is pretty amazing because like I said, my collection grew once. I didn't get the anime bite, so to speak, until much later, and then once I did, it was just like boom, and I started buying them up, and I couldn't stop because it was just like damn, like almost every series I've ever bought, I've liked. There's been very few shows that I bought. There was only one that I bought that I can think of, and I just didn't like the show. Uh, the name kind of escapes me at the moment, but it was a short series. I think it was only like 12 episodes long, and it just got like I understood what the story was about and blah blah blah, but it was just really boring to me. I'm very different from you then. How so? I hate most anime I watch. Well, hey, fair enough, though. Ironically enough, most mainstream Western television I don't like. That's why I don't watch it, and that's kind of that's probably one of the reasons the anime collection got so big is because like most people are like, well, don't you watch Friends? Don't you watch them? Like, no. They're like, why? I was like, because I don't find them entertaining. Sure, they're funny, but I just no, not my stuff. Yeah, CU Friends sucks. Exactly. I just don't like Friends. There are shows I like. I liked The Big Bang Theory. I thought that one was hilarious. And yeah, you only watch YouTube, and that's a thing now, right? For a lot of years, that wasn't a thing because YouTube wasn't really big even around the time that I started anime. It wasn't very big. It was still a little fledgling thing that people did. So there was no way to really learn about anime. There was no anime.net, where you sign on and you post your favorite lists and all that stuff. Uh, you remember watching Minecraft vids in 2013? Yeah, precisely. Yeah, but anime wasn't really an easy thing to get into back when I started. You really had to just look and hope for the best. But there's a lot of series, and I'm pretty easygoing as long as the anime series does what I want it to. In the sense, like if I pick up an anime comedy, I want to laugh. And if I laugh, I don't care what the hell it's about. I really don't. It's if it's funny is funny, and scary is scary. That's why if I get a horror anime, I expect it to be bloody horrifying, and a lot of them really are. There's some really crazy, scary, disturbing shit out there, man. Like, man, name the most disturbing and horrifying anime you ever saw. If you drop it in the comments, and we'll talk about it. If it's something I might have or I might not have. Horror anime or something you'd like to try out sometime. Well, if you haven't seen any horror anime, I could recommend a couple to you. A couple that I have. One is called, and I'll put it in the chat as well, so you can see how it's spelt. Oops, what the hell? Get over there. There's one called Shiki. You've seen like 4 animes in total. Oh, well, you definitely there's a lot more out there for you, and a lot of them are worth looking into. For example, if you want to see horror anime, Shiki that's one, which is a really good one. There's also Hell Girl, which is another really good one. Shiki is a horror anime about vampires, actually. I won't spoil too much of it. Long story short, vampires come to a small town, and it's it's crazy. It's really it starts out as like a horror, straight up psychological like horror. People are being stalked and you don't really know, and people are vanishing and nobody understands, and I don't want to spoil too much, but it is one of the most hardcore and crazy things I've ever seen, and it's very, very well done. The animation is really good. So it's about the Dredge lore. So, a little bit, yeah. There's it for those of you who follow Dead by Daylight. Yeah, the Dredge is an amalgamation of human suffering, etc. Yeah, the Dredge would have very easily formed in this small town where the Shiki story takes place in. Absolutely. So definitely check out Shiki. It's a newer one. You should very easily find it on Crunchyroll or Funimation. I'm pretty sure it's there. Definitely check that one out. It's, yeah, go all the way through it. It does a very interesting change. Is it on Netflix though? I don't think so. I would have to actually. I can check it right now on my phone. I don't believe it is. I'm pretty sure it's on Crunchyroll and things like that. Funimation, Shiki. Nope, it is not there. Yeah, like I said, Crunchyroll or Funimation, that's where you'll find it. Or on DVD. That was how I got my hands on it. But yeah, very, very well done series. Oh, you don't have either? Yeah. There's probably a free subscription service with one of them. I think Funimation has a free subscription service, but they I think they put like freaking ads and shit. It's like YouTube. So you'll be like watching your episodes and then they'll put freaking advertisements in the middle. So if you can tolerate that, at least you might get to see the show. So maybe look into that. That I seem to recall, like I'm subscribed to them now, so I don't have that problem. But I seem to recall that was how it started out, with just ads popping up. So yeah, look into that. It's definitely worth it. Hellgirl was the other one that I had mentioned, and that's a really good one too. That's the one about, speaking of betrayal, because you said earlier in the chat there, top 10 anime betrayals. Well, Hellgirl definitely deals with betrayals. It's basically a urban legend sort of thing where it's like if somebody wrongs you, you can go onto this certain website and type the person's name in, and then Hellgirl will like literally take them to hell, is what it's about. And now that you mention it, now that I think about it, she'd fit right into Dead by Daylight. Actually, it's like quite literally her. She'd fit in perfectly with that. But Hellraiser. So Death Note. You haven't? No, you have seen Death Note, right? Combined with Death Note combined with Hellraiser. Yeah, sort of. I guess you could put it that way. Yeah, it's. I guess it's kind of like that. Hellraiser was a little different in the sense that Hellraiser was about the ultimate domain of pain, pleasure through pain. But yeah, this is just straight. She takes them to hell. That's the end of them. But yeah, there's definitely betrayals in that series. But it was a well done series. There was, I think, four seasons of it, but they only dubbed the first one. And yes, I watched the dubs, not the subs. Sorry. Oh, we just lost a viewer. There we go. But yeah, so we do have the the full-on Japanese versions if you prefer them, or the English dub. Only the first season was dubbed in English. And I honestly only watched the first season anyway, because that was it was good enough for me, I guess is a way of saying it. Not to say I wouldn't have been interested to see how the series evolved. I just think I got on to other things at that point, so I never really got to even inquire about what the stories were for the other ones. But definitely check it out. It was another really good horror one, although Shiki is definitely has more horrific things happen in it. than Hellgirl does. Hellgirl deals a lot more with, I think, morality and the things like, is it really right to be sending these people to hell just because, for whatever the reasons are? Because some reasons are obviously better than others. So they kind of make you question that a little bit, but it's like, meh, they're gonna go to hell regardless because that's what she's gonna do. So, but yeah, uh, morality is annoying. But yeah, so those are some good ones. And if you ever want to talk horror anime, I mean, there's other ones. Like I have another one actually called Mermaid Forest, which isn't a horror necessarily in the same sense that Shiki is. It's more about well, I guess to explain the storyline, the plot, Mermaid Forest follows multiple people, and there's this. The belief is that if you eat the flesh of a mermaid, you gain immortality, and so Mermaid Forest sort of follows the lives of the people who did eat a mermaid's flesh, and they're the sort of things that happen to them with their immortality, and some are quite horrific. So there's that one. That was a really weird and interesting one, but it was pretty good. It's worth taking a browse over. Yeah. So there was that. Those were the horror animes. When I was still fairly new to the anime scene, one of the first series I actually got after the others I've already showed you, I got Ranma 1/2. And this is one I talked about in my in the chat rooms and everything that I was talking to my other fellow creators and everything, and we were discussing anime the other day. And I said, yeah, Ranma 1/2 was one of my first comedy type shows I ever got. And they're like, well, what's that about? Well, Ranma 1/2. Normally, I just tell people, like, watch the show and, like, see it because it's kind of more interesting to see people's reaction to, like, figuring what the hell the show's about as opposed to telling them. But since we're doing a stream and we're here to discuss it, I'm going to discuss it here. So, yeah, Ranma 1/2 is about a martial artist and his son, the son being Ranma, and they want to create the best martial arts dojo in the world. So they're traveling around studying martial arts everywhere, and they end up in China because they hear that there's this cursed spring where they can practice where they figure they're going to practice their martial arts there. And given the danger of the place being cursed, it'll make their training just that much better. So yeah, so they end up fighting there, and they end up falling into. There's actually multiple cursed springs there. It's not just one spring, water spring that's there that's cursed. It's all of them, and there's like 20-something different springs there, right? And so Rama gets knocked by his father into the one, and Rama knocks his father into another one, and his father comes out of the water as a panda bear because a panda bear died in that spring, and whoever falls into that spring will be cursed to become a panda whenever they get cold water thrown on them. Pretty much Kung Fu Panda, yeah. Way before Kung Fu Panda was a thing, yeah. So all the springs had somebody had a tragic death in them, and the one Rama got knocked into was a young girl's spring. So when he comes out of his spring, he's been turned into a red-haired girl. And so naturally, being a 16-year-old boy who's now a girl, he's freaking the hell out. But there's a silver lining because if they get hot water dumped on them, they revert back to their normal form. So it's like, yay, as long as he doesn't get water thrown on him, he's still himself. But if he gets the water thrown on him, then he goes into the body of this 16-year-old girl. And it's a hilarious show. And it even starts out with him because, Ranma's father and Ranma's father's best friend, who's also a martial artist, They decided that they wanted their kids to marry one day because Ranma's dad's friend, he has daughters, so Ranma has to marry one of them. And the series begins, with him being brought to be engaged to one of them. And naturally, when he shows up initially, because it was raining and he's a girl, everybody's confused. Nobody understands what's going on, and Rama's like horribly embarrassed because he's just a girl and he doesn't want to admit what happened and things like that. So it's a really, really funny series, and the series just follows the hijinks of the teenager living with the curse, and all the related problems that come from that, and as well as trying to become the best martial artist in the world, etc., etc. Great cast of characters that grows. The series is 7 seasons long, and there's 2 movies, I think, and like a batch of OVAs. So it's a really great series, and I highly recommend that just as much as I recommend any of the other ones, just because it's a really funny show, and it's another one that I've shown to everybody, and people watch it. Everybody laughs. It's a great show. So Ranma One Half, can't go wrong with that one. I'll put the name down here as well,